I'm here to explain about a budget calculator web app named Money Diary developed by our group. This project was undertaken under the guidance of Dr. Swarnalatha P. The following budget calculator is a free-to-use web app, unlike other such applications, which are either paid or those that are free to use are not widely used. Mostly these applications are free to enter, but if you have to use other basic necessities like entering your expenses or entering your incomes, then you have to become a paid member of the website. But our app is totally free. The free alternatives which are available are not widely usable and mostly seem like a prototype. Basically, our web app keeps track of all the expenses and incomes of the user, which can be classified by the user under various categories like beauty, food, utensils, electronics, etc. Simultaneously, our app also creates a pictorial representation of the same in the form of a pie chart which gets updated daily as the user updates his entries of the expenses and the income. Our app also gives a monthly reminder to the user, giving a detailed analysis about the month's expenditure and the expenses, the source of the expenses, the incomes, and the sources of the incomes. Basically, this app is a very good and free alternative which can be widely used by the students across all platforms as this is a web app and can be used on a browser.
Now I, Abhimanyu Verma, will give a quick demo of the web application. This right here is the sign-in page, where existing users will sign into the app via their email and password that is specified during registration and then clicking on sign in. If they, however, do not have a pre-existing account, they shall click on sign up here, which takes them to the registration page. On the registration page, the credentials that are required are name, email, password, and confirmation for the password. Note, both password and confirm password fields have to be same. And if the user has already created an account and tries to create a new account with the same email address, they won't be able to do so. And an error message will be displayed saying that a user with the same account already exists. Then the user has to click on sign up. After creation of a successful account, they will be redirected back to the sign in page where they must use the same credentials for signing in. Upon clicking sign in, they will be signed into the main page of the app. This is the main page for the expense tracker. At the top, you can see there are two radio buttons, one next to expense and one next to income. If the user wishes to log a new expense, they will make sure that this radio button is selected. They will select a type. There are many types which are already listed here, but if the user does not has made an expense of a different type, they always have the option of selecting the other type. Let's say I've made an expense for food, saying I had a burger. As for the date, let's say 31st of October 2020, and let's say the amount was 100 rupees. When I click on add, two things happen. The first thing is the total balance at the top is updated. The second thing is this entry is entered in the transaction table. You will notice that the balance says negative 100. This is because I haven't added any incomes before. Okay, now let's add an income. For that, all I have to do is click on the radio button next to income. Again, select a type. Let's say savings. Say monthly savings for the description. Date is again 31st of October. Amount, let's say it is 1000 rupees. When I click on add, again, the changes are implemented in two places. First is the transaction table. Second is the total balance, which is now 900 rupees. As you may have guessed, the total balance is calculated by adding all the incomes and then subtracting that by adding all the expenses. When I click on expense analysis at the top over here, it gives me a pie chart showing me a graphical depiction of all of my expenses. Right now, I have added only one expense, which came under the type of food. Hence, the pie chart corresponds to the color of food. The pie chart will show expenses based on their category, and hence it is color coded in different manners for that. Let's say I want to add another expense, this time of the type electronics. Let's say headphones, dated 2nd November. Amount was 350 rupees. Again, I click on add. Once again, I can see that the information is logged into the database and it is showing in the table over here. Also, my total balance has also changed. Now, when I click on expense analysis, this is showing me that I have spent 100 rupees on food and 350 on electronics. This is how the summary statistics work. Once the user is done, he or she may click on sign out. Also, it is important to note that all the transactions for a particular user are saved, and for the purpose of demonstrating that, I will log into the same account once again. As I click on sign in, you can see that the total balance was the same as it was before I clicked on sign out. The transactions are also the same. Expense analysis pie chart is also the same. Hence, all the users' transactions are saved. That is all from my side. Thank you.
Now I, Abhinav Shenoy, will be explaining the techniques that were used in the development of this website. Now for the website we used a simple full stack environment. For the front end we used a basic stack of HTML, CSS and JavaScript. With JavaScript we also use the jQuery library. jQuery is a library which is made using JavaScript. This allows the developers to easily reuse bits of code which would have to be otherwise repeatedly typed within the development interface. JavaScript, HTML and CSS are very common front-end languages and don't require any complicated frameworks or functionalities to work normally. These also are not very taxing on the computer and can be used quite easily. For the backend, we used Ajax, which is a JavaScript library. It allows us to synchronize data and update it continuously. This means that data in the server is updated immediately as soon as the user inputs the data. We used a simple post function in order to update the data. Post refers to posting the data to the server. This means that every time a entry is made, the data is posted to the server directly. Similarly, for account creation and login pages, Ajax and jQuery is used to take the registration and login details from the user. These details are then used to update the server, creating a new user, and are stored the data. Every time a user tries to log in, the data is cross-referenced with the already present data that is there within the server. Upon confirmation of the correct credentials, the user is let in into the website. Upon entering the main part of the website, as can be seen on the screen right here, the user can input their transactions. There are two forms of transactions: expense transactions and income transactions. The transactions are converted into a JSON file, which refers to JavaScript object notation. This is an easy way of data transfer via text method, in which every single field is converted into a simple text format, which is then transferred via internet to the server. Now for the analysis part. The data from the server is used for analysis. As can be seen over here, every single transaction can be determined as an expense or an income transaction. Now, the numerical portions of the transactions are used. The incomes are given a flag value of 1 and the expense values are given a flag value of 2. Thus, the income and expense values can be separated easily. This data is eventually used to calculate the analytics. The total income and expenses are subtracted in order to calculate the balance. As can be seen over here, if you add up all the expenses and add up all the incomes and subtract them, the balance is given. This is updated in real time as shown in the presentation. Along with this, we have a chart for expense analysis. For using chart analysis, we use chart.js, which is JavaScript library to develop charts. Here we use this library to develop the chart for the expense report. The chart was created as a pie chart. This pie chart is used because it allows easy visualization for the user. As can be seen on the screen, the user can easily determine which segment represents which category of expense. Now, the chart module extracts data from the server and uses it to create the chart. The chart is also updated in real time. Now, as I press sign out, as you can see, we have moved back to the login screen. As I press sign out, the server releases my authentication, removing me from the main site. And as I said before, Ajax is used. This means that the data is updated synchronously, and thus signing out is very easy. And there is no unnecessary load on the server when the user signs out. This is how the site functions from a technical perspective. Thank you.
As for the general design of the web application, we decided that we wanted to have a clean yet functional design. Hence, the UI is very clean and simple to use, where text fields straight away relay what is to be required. Also, after signing in, the main page is not intimidating at all. It is kept very simple because the main target audience is that of students. Hence, in places like income, you don't have very many type of incomes. Salary and savings is given, but yet, if anyone else wants to have another type of income, they can always select another and give a description about that. Thus, it caters for the demographic of all types of people. We wanted a very simplistic, clean, and functional design for this. Hence, we have the transaction adding elements at the top over here. At the bottom, we have the transaction history table, which shows a list of all the transactions that the user has made. At the top, we also have the total balance, which is calculated by adding all the incomes and then subtracting that with the sum of all the expenses. The expense analysis chart is also a pie chart, which is the easiest chart to read, and it gives a very good graphical depiction of a user's expenses. It is color coded by the type of the expense, which the user has to select at the time of logging an expense. It is color coded by those, and when you take the cursor over a color type, it shows you how much you've spent in that particular category. For instance, over here it says that I've spent 100 rupees on food and 350 on electronics, which is the same as the transaction table. The main reason why we wanted to create a budget calculating app is because most students of our age, whether whether they are college going students or students going to the school, we've always felt the need to log our expenses. Most of the applications that we find are paid apps, and the ones which are not paid have a design which seems more like a prototype design. Our intent was to give the customers or the users a very clean, neat experience which was functional at the same time. And that is what we have achieved over here.